Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Steve Cavendish. He's the president and editor of the new Nashville Banner online news service. Steve, let's talk about the lone statewide race. Governor Bill Lee has no primary opponent. He has three little-known and underfunded Democrats running against him. Which one of the Democrats is likely to get the unenviable task of taking on a Tennessee governor? No Tennessee governor has lost a chance for a second term.
I mean, it's sort of Memphis versus Nashville for this.
Yeah, there's two Memphis candidates.
There's two Memphis candidates. J.B. Smiley is the better funded of the two candidates from Memphis. Jason Martin is a Hendersonville doctor who's kind of centered his campaign around Nashville. Flip a coin. I don't know. Neither campaign has a ton of money. There hasn't been much advertising. Hasn't been much outreach. Who's going to be the sacrificial lamb? I have no idea. Governor
Lee's been embroiled in this now weeks-long controversy about the degrading comments made about teachers by his education advisor, Dr. Larry Arnn. The criticism and pushback on the governor has been bipartisan, but in terms of this election, does it really make any difference? You can't vote against Bill Lee except to abstain from voting, and if you do that, if you don't want to vote at all, otherwise you got to go in the Democratic primary. So we're probably not going to see any impact on this, at least in August.
I don't think so. And this is sort of, if you had a functional Democratic Party in Tennessee, that would be the issue that you would see really weaponized, particularly going into November. But I just don't think there's enough push there for them to be able to make hay in either the state house races, the state senate races, or the governor's race.
For the first time, there are partisan school board races being held, I guess, in just about every county of the state. Has this change been, in your mind, better or worse in terms of creating voter interest and turnout?
I think it's been worse, and a lot of voters that I've talked to, at least here in Nashville, have said that it's kind of thrown off the rhythms of the cycle. That typically this was a summer election, but these school board candidates had to start getting ready. Basically since the first of the year. It probably cost them some candidates. There was a teacher who was going to run, or who wanted to run it in one primary, but because of the rules about being able to run for political office, couldn't do it during the school year. It was just sort of a mess.
So much during the pandemic, schools were a battleground. Are we going to continue to see that? Are we going to have electric going out to throw the rascals out? Is it going to be a tough race for incumbents, or is it going to be, or voters now looking ahead to what is going to happen in the future, and like COVID in general, they're kind of over it?
I think it's kind of a very noisy minority that really wants to stake out these extreme positions in school board races, and particularly whether it's arming teachers or whether it's about kind of COVID response. I think the vast majority of voters know that their teachers and their principals and their school system as having as hard a time dealing with COVID as they are.
Nashville has 4 Metro Charter amendments that I mentioned earlier. Is there one that might be getting some opposition? It appears number 1 actually is the one that might get that. That changes the process of how many voter signatures it takes to call a referendum to change the charter. You haven't seen anything public about that or paid advertising, but I hear there's a lot of movement about that or talk about it on social media.
There's a lot of behind the scenes sort of jockeying on it. Of the 4, numbers 2, 3, and 4 are very non-controversial. Especially the third one, which clarifies some language about the health department, would allow them to broaden the field of candidates who could actually be the director of public health. But back on that first one, it kind of splits both ways. This is a reaction to the For Good Government group trying to put some fairly poorly written anti-tax amendments on the ballot.
And lawsuits that came back.
And the lawsuits which came for it, and because of the way the Davidson County Election Commission stepped up to defend it, taxpayers are on the hook for about $1 million worth of litigation. And I think that that's why these were written. The number that's there, 10% of registered voters, which is what the new threshold would be, is controversial in that some grassroots organizations have said, hey, we couldn't have gotten, for instance, the Citizen Oversight Board onto the ballot without it.
Are Democrats in Davidson County perhaps dispirited, maybe not going to vote in their usual numbers because of what's happened with the city being divided up into 3 different districts? And might that have an impact first on getting a Republican somehow in November elected to our delegation? There aren't any right now. Or would it make a difference in some of these down ballot things that are still on the ballot right now?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of Democrats that have been especially energized, particularly by the Dobbs decision, and by a couple of other issues that are out there. There's maybe not the candidate that they're behind, but I think there's some energy there. Is
there any reason to pop some extra popcorn for Thursday night, because it may take a while to figure out who's going to win the 5th district in the Republican side?
I think the 5th district is going to go a little bit later than most.
And we're probably the other races will probably all be decided within about the first maybe 5 minutes or nanosecond after the polls are closed.
The early votes should give us a pretty good indication on a lot of these races, whether it's the Senate 19, which is kind of the hot race here in town, or maybe some of these House races. We're going to know pretty early.
Steve Cavendish, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate your insights. We'll see how smart or not smart we were, and we'll probably have you back on the show to talk about it again sometime soon.
Let's do it.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. We'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get the politics in the meantime, you go to the Channel Y website, find my Capitol News commentary there. There's new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you here next time. Goodbye.